Hi, and welcome back to another edition of MashTalk, Mashable's weekly Google Plus Hangout, where we basically talk about what's happening in tech. This week, we are talking about Mobile World Congress. The big Mobile World Congress event just ended in Barcelona. This week, we had people there on the ground. Tons of stuff was announced, so we're going to talk about all of it. And yes, we will inevitably have to mention something big that is happening on Monday, the Apple event. But we're not really here to talk about Apple. We are here to talk about Mobile World Congress. To help me do that, I am joined first by Pete Patchell. Who is that, Pete?
I'm
Oh,
going to
this is
show you
Ultron.
something beautiful. Millions of cell phones screaming for mercy.
Well, the voice of Ultron, the Conqueror, is of course Pete Patchell, our tech editor, who is taking advantage of Take Your Action Figure to Work Day. Come on, Pete, show us your face.
Hello. It's so don't be frightened.
Yay!
Ultron's just here to help with the commentary.
He is. He is. We
It's a
love
good
it. We love
example
it.
of advanced technology these days. I mean, AI and context, man, it's all leading to this.
You know what? It's true. It's true. Marvel will rule the world one day. We'll all be a Marvel universe. Also joining us, as always, is Lance Ulanoff, our chief correspondent. Lance, how are you?
I'm great.
Yeah, you were in some fancy cars this week, weren't you?
I was actually. I was at a Tesla race of, well, at least one Tesla was racing, drag racing, but a whole bunch of really expensive cars were drag racing. It's all part of a series that I'm doing about Tesla that's coming to browsers soon.
Coming to browsers soon. And we are also joined today by Stan Schroeder, who's our European editor. Stan, how are you?
Hey, really good. I recently came from Barcelona and back into Croatia where there's a huge storm raging on, but it's now a little bit better, so I made it safely.
That's
Uh,
good. That's super good. No, we were worried about you because you said yesterday that you had a hard time getting back from Barcelona because of the storm in Croatia, right?
oh, the flight was not a problem, but it was like the roads were closed yesterday, like where I needed to go. So, but it's a little bit better today. So I waited one more day to come back home from Zagreb to Rijeka. It's all good now. I'm home. I'm safe. The wind has stopped blowing, and we can talk MWC.
Fantastic. Well, we are so glad you're here to join us, Stan, because we know it's late there, your time. We really appreciate it, and we're going to jump right into this. So, the biggest news I think that this week at NWC was Samsung and the Galaxy S6 Edge, and the Galaxy S6 and the Galaxy S6 Edge. And, I kind of want to, I'm going to start with you, Pete, because I know you got a preview of the phone before it was announced, and we're also going to talk to Stan and Lance, too, to kind of get their perspectives. But can we kind of talk a little bit about the design of the Edge, because that's been getting a lot of commentary. They did something kind of similar to what they did with the Note 4 Edge last fall, but they didn't go quite as far. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, basically, Samsung came out with two flagship phones. One is this Samsung Galaxy S6, of course, and also the Galaxy S6 Edge, which was rumored. So everyone kind of expected basically the S variation of the Note Edge, which came out last fall. And the Note Edge obviously had this cool little side screen. It was an app launcher. It was a news scroll. You could do a ruler. So it was this neat little tool, and this kind of got, to be generous, kind of dumbed down in the Galaxy S6. So since it's not as big, the panel wouldn't have been as wide anyway. But basically, you don't have the side screen anymore. It's more of a design feature. There's a couple of things that do swipe in from the side, like if you're on your home screen, you can swipe in on the top right, and you get these contacts that you can't get on um, the regular S6. Plus, it still retains like the night clock, which was a kind of a cool feature. So, like if you put it horizontally on your nightstand and turn on the night clock, it's you basically have a clock radio, an old school clock radio. That's your phone. Pretty good idea. So a couple of those features carry over, and then there's this thing where the sides will glow if it's face down when someone calls you. I don't know. That's kind of a my phone's better than your phone feature. But other than that, it's really just design. It's really just kind of like, here's these cool little edges that kind of make it look cool, kind of make it, I guess you could argue, kind of easier to hold or harder to hold. Either way, we'll find out when we have a chance to kind of play with it more. So it's an odd and understandable choice on Samsung's part, because I kind of get it in that they want mass appeal for this phone. Now, if you look at the Note already has this appeal to power users, and we've talked about phablets before.
Sure.
They've become the flagship, so that's changing. But the core of the roots of a phablet are power users, and that's kind of why I think they decided, okay, let's go all out with the Note, let's give it all this utility. But really, if you're looking at someone who just wants a phone, like, I could see that side panel being a little bit intimidating, and people kind of thinking like, oh, this is a little geeky. I don't need more app icons on my screen, you know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, if they really want this thing to appeal to people and sort of emphasize they basically have emphasized the design of it, and it's like, hey, look how cool it is, and you want it for that reason. So,
Pete,
I don't know if it's going to work.
Do you think they also had to do the edge for that phone because they didn't want to make their phone look exactly like an iPhone 6 or 6
well,
Plus?
the S6 does.
I know, I've seen.
S6 does. They've got two phones. What's up with the two phones?
So that was the thing, because I saw those pictures, and I was. Now I'm holding a 6 Plus here, but there's a little line that appears here on the 6 and 6, the 6 Plus. It's a design element. And I think I saw on Samsung they put a similar design element here. I mean, I felt like when I read your post, Pete, the first thing I thought is Samsung's going back to its roots. And by roots, I mean Apple's roots, because Samsung has a tradition of copying. That had been what they had been doing for a long time, is copying what they saw, the best of what they saw, and then you get these really similar phones.
Right.
And with the stuff that you're seeing for a while, I actually thought they were starting to really differentiate themselves. Not always in the best way. I didn't always like the backs.
Though, right?
Well,
that's
I didn't like the backs.
Right? I mean, like when they tried to do it on their own, they didn't sell anything, so they got to go back and copy to sell. Isn't that the joke? Slash truth?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it's true. It sounds a little unfair, but there's definitely some truth in that. But
there's some truth in it.
You know, to be fair to Samsung, I think that the Samsung Galaxy S3 was a wildly popular phone.
Absolutely.
And they've had trouble sort of recapturing. That ever since. And also they were first to sort of fork their own line with the large notes that suddenly appealed to all these people that almost unexpectedly, and I think that kind of changed the market. It even changed what Apple did. But I don't know if it's because once you get really thin with the phone, there aren't a lot of design options left that they all start looking alike, or Samsung just said, what the hell? You know, what is Apple going to do? Sue us again? Come on. Just make this like that.
Well, and they didn't even end up losing that much in the end of that. I mean, I forgot how much ultimately the damages were, but I mean, if they're losing $1 billion every couple of years on a lawsuit just because they're copying Apple, I mean, that's a good business. You know, like, I mean, it's like, you know, you throw in $500 million to do that, and you're great. I mean, compared to what they're going to get from potentially selling a really good phone, a really well-designed phone.
I do have a question for you, Pete, about because since you now are one of the few people, Stan, I may possibly as well, who've held both an iPhone 6 and 6 Plus and these new Samsung phones. Do they feel the same way? Do they? You know, I think one of the things I love about the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus is the sleek feel and the curve of the screen as it goes, the glass as it goes to the edge of the aluminum. It's just sort of this. It's not a hard flat thing. It kind of curves around the edges. You have that kind of feeling with the Samsung phones?
Very much. Yes. Honestly, they were a joy to hold. I will say it's a very good design. Definitely harkens back to the iPhone, but really, it's like with the metal sides and stuff. I mean, it's really almost like trends of design. I feel a bit that like Apple is a leader, Samsung more of a follower, but I'm not really going to jump on Samsung for like, well, we used a metal edge this time, and it's slightly curved. It's like, whatever, it's a phone, and really people aren't really buying for I don't know for those specific features. But I must say they compared to the Galaxy S5, I think it's a very smart choice to not prioritize the waterproof feature, because it's really like that feature, while it's useful, requires sort of a different design. I mean, at the very least, you need that flap.
It's got to be plastic. It's got to be, yeah.
Yeah, or like Sony's done some glass stuff, but I mean, it's like you got to have that flap. You got to have these sort of slightly, ever so slightly annoying design features to really do it. And so that the trade-off for everyone becomes much greater. That when you account for the millions of phones are going to sell, much greater than the actual benefit, which is for the 5 people who are going to drop this in a toilet, because it's not meant for like underwater operation.
Well,
you're not supposed to be.
Well, I want to go to Stan.
Go ahead, Stan.
Yeah, I want to go to Stan. Stan, what was your take? I mean, you were there, obviously, in Barcelona. What was the response? A, what did you think of the phones? And B, kind of what was the response from people in Barcelona? Were they responding positively? I mean, Samsung still has huge amounts of market share and brand capital, especially in Europe. What do people think?
So I got to say that I basically didn't even look at the regular S6, and not in the sense that I didn't see it. I was like, the S6 Edge is just so much more appealing to me, because S6 was just like boring next to it. So I was like, I really like the S6 Edge's design, whereas the S6 looks like his little boring brother. That's just my opinion. Though I understand that the ratio between the reasoning behind launching 2 phones. I mean, Samsung had sort of a shoddy quarter. Apple had like the best quarter in the history of big business ever. And so Samsung had to, they had to do something, they wanted to cover all bases. So I kind of get that, but it could also go against them because, as Pete said, I think the Edge is nicer, but it's also a little bit more complicated and maybe more scary to an average user. And so we'll see how it works out for them. As far as the buzz, most of what I've heard was everybody was talking about the Edge. But I guess that more tech-savvy people are going to like the Edge more, and maybe less tech-savvy people are going to prefer the simpler variant.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I'd just like to point out that I don't see anything wrong with copy.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you guys, and then we're going to move off, and then we're going to play a game called Yay or Nay. But there were some reports. Ben Bergeron, who's a really well-respected analyst, was saying that the reason that they're basically going to have low yields on the S6 Edge, that they're not going to be selling this as mainstream as they are at other places. It's basically being used as kind of a showcase phone to show off their curved edge screen technology. If that's the case, do you think there's maybe a little bit something off with kind of the way that they messaged this both to the press before the event and then at the event itself? Because as you guys are all saying, we're all talking about the Edge. We think that's got the more compelling design. That's certainly what Stan is saying. But if this is a phone that regular people aren't even going to be able to get, are they doing themselves a disservice by even showing it off in this way to make it seem like people, to get people excited about something that they might not be able to buy? What do you think, Lance?
Oh, I don't know. It's funny because what Stan was talking about there, about this sort of the reactive positioning of these products, I don't actually think that makes sense because of the lead times for development.
Sure.
I don't actually think Samsung has had the time to truly digest what's happened to them in the last 6 months, 6 to 8 months. I don't think they can swap it in our products that quickly. They got a tremendous response to the Note Edge last year that clearly emboldened them to continue what was obviously development that was already happening on the Galaxy S6 Edge. It's a sizzle to remind people that Samsung is an innovator and critical to show alongside the Samsung Galaxy 6 for the reason we explained before. Otherwise, everybody would be saying you just reproduced the iPhone 6. You basically made a couple of alterations that align with your own product design signature elements, but otherwise it's the same phone. So it's kind of like don't look here, look here, this bright, shiny object. It doesn't matter whether or not you can get it right away or later on. it's a signal, it's a message to the buyers out there that they will continue to innovate, they will do things that no one else is doing, and quite honestly, I've thought the Edge technology is smart. I am disappointed that they did some of the things that Pete talked about, that they kind of dumbed it down, but it still makes me think that they will continue to develop on that platform and give you more and more things that you can do along that little edge. So I don't think it was a mistake, but I think
Sure.
it's also tremendously purposeful.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we are going to move on now to a little game that we're going to call Yay or Nay, where we're going to spend a couple of minutes on each topic, and then we're all going to go around. First, what we're going to do is we're going to give our yay or nay to the topic, and then we're going to debate it. So we're going to start first with the HTC M9 and their honking wearable, whatever the hell it's called. No one cares. So, Pete, I'm going to start with you. Yay or nay on the phone?
Nay.
Nay. Lance, yay or nay on the phone?
I'll say nay.
All right, Stan, yay or nay on the phone?
Also nay.
Whoa,
All right, I'm also nay. I'm also nay on the phone. The nay completely on the phone. All right, Pete, rant for a minute. I know you've been dying to rant about the M9. Why is the M9 such a disappointment? HTC, why have you forsaken us?
They got rid of what was interesting. Now, I have no doubt it's going to be a solid Android phone, but I really, really liked that HTC was differentiating itself, particularly with the camera. And by throwing away particularly the depth sensor, which I thought gave it sort of some really cool abilities, such as the refocusing, being able to do effects with every single shot. You didn't have to put it in a special mode for these things. I would show that off first thing to everyone at the HTC M8. I would show off, look at what it can do to every photo. It can make every photo look great.
Pete, you're the only person who cares about that feature. I swear.
You are. You're the only one who cares about it.
And I think that it's because,
why are you saying that?
Because you have a crush on Lytro type technology. Anything that does something like the Lytro, you immediately think is the best thing ever, and then now you're angry at them because they took it away when they probably
took it away, lads. They took away my Lytro.
They took it away.
We spent all this money on technology and nobody cares.
It seems that way. And the grip,
All right.
I'm hedging that one a little bit. It's just not interesting.
You're a yay. You said yay earlier. Don't lie. All right. So the grip, you're yay.
Yay.
Dan, how do you feel about the grip? Yay or nay?
The grip, I'm nay, I guess.
Nay.
What? It's awesome.
Lance, yay or nay?
I don't have an opinion.
Oh, I'm a strong nay because this thing is ugly. It's huge, it's bulky, and I'm sorry, you guys. Why do you need to wear a separate wearable to go running, then have a smartwatch that you're going to use for other reasons, and then have? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I didn't think that was actually a product.
Smartwatches don't have GPS. It has
whatever.
It's very accurate tracking, better than most. So those are the things. Discerning.
And it's ugly, you guys. It's ugly. It's ugly. Who's gonna wear the grip? No one. No one in the entire world is going to wear the grip.
I think somebody told me about that product in brief last week, and I thought they were joking because I didn't imagine that there would be like something that you'd also have to have something else. I mean, that sounds so 1986. I was like, no, that's silly. That's not real, and yet it is.
And yet it is. Poor HTC. All right, now we're going to move on to the one cool thing HTC showed off, although they're doing it with Valve, which means it's on Valve time, which means we're never going to see it and it's never going to be real. This is the, what is it, the IV? What is it called, the IVE?
The Revive.
The Revive.
Okay,
the Revive.
Let's put a little aside here on their branding. Like, they're really, like, I don't know who's in charge of their Re side, because now we have the Re camera. And when I was at the briefing, they were describing, well, Re is going to be this thing, so that's why we named this sub-brand. So they named it's like Re-Grip, but we're going to call it the Grip. So wait a minute, now this is the Vive then? Because Re seems to go with Vive, so, it's like, I don't know what they're doing.
I don't get the branding. Remember the Resound? You guys remember the Resound? That phone was great. I love
So,
that phone because Verizon let me use it for a year before they shut off the unlimited LTE data.
hey, Stan, I saw a picture of you wearing the Revive, and I don't want to make you feel bad, but it looked like you were wearing a pair of Crocs on your face.
It did, Stan. Talk to us about the Revive. What was it like? What was the experience like? Because you're the only one who actually used it. So tell us what the experience was like.
Well, first, no, that was a dead thing. It
Ah,
wasn't on. And as far as what it felt like, it felt exactly like wearing a pair of Crocs on my face. So it was, I mean,
Hopefully, it didn't smell like that.
it was pretty damn huge. It's bulky, and I didn't see anything. So that was the experience. I mean, it's promising. I just want to really quickly go back to the 1.8 and the group. The thing is, what the HTC showed was like just nothing new. They asked me about the design. Do I like the design? And I was showed the 1M8, M9. And I was like, yeah, I liked it last year. You know?
But I
So
mean, you still like it.
yeah,
I mean,
I
it's still
still
a
do
good
like it.
design. So
It's
why did you
awesome.
say nay, Lance?
Why did I say nay? I mean, I
It
think the
wasn't the
design.
camera.
Oh, I didn't actually say yay or nay. I just said it looks like you're wearing a pair of Crocs on your face. I
No,
don't
no,
think.
no, the one, the
no,
one
no, no, no,
M9.
the one.
Oh, the one. I just don't think it stands out in any particular way. But
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
exactly.
don't care. I don't care so much about the camera being removed because that's a feature. It's a dig-in feature that no one's going to dig to. I try to remember if you told me, did they still maintain their high-end audio on the phones?
They do have dual
Yeah,
speakers, and they boast to have
the
them
boom sound.
sound.
I Yeah, I do like
Yeah, they
that.
still made sound a big
I do
deal.
like that, and I actually think that's a better differentiator. One, it's something that you can see because the speaker grills are literally on the front. But two, I think experience if you're like somebody who likes to have your watch a movie and not have a headset on and sit there and have it speak at you like that, or try and play music to a room. That's
Right.
actually I think people would notice and use something like that. But I don't think the phone didn't seem particularly changed for me. Like nothing, I
Yeah,
like it.
exactly.
I like it
Right.
when people do push the envelope a little bit, when they do, introduce something that stands apart, like
Sure.
the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge.
Edge. All right. All
And
right. So we've talked enough about. Go on, Stan. I want you to finish up.
well, I just wanted to say so. HTC showed a kind of a boring flagship, but the Revive was, the exact opposite. It was an interesting product. It's just not here yet. So, I mean, so let's just, to the extent that it's so far away that that HTC even doesn't know what it's called. If you go to the official site, it says HTC Vive and then it says HTC Revive. They're really not sure about the branding. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a product
the
that's
branding
not.
is really confused.
Yeah, it's very
It really is.
confusing. And I mean, it's promising. It says it's gonna. They told me, the HTC rep told me it's gonna have 70 sensors. You're gonna have lasers, which are not built onto the thing.
To
They're
shoot
separate.
from your eyes
No, no,
through
unfortunately.
those little holes.
No,
That's what all
sadly.
those holes are for.
I asked the same thing. No, it's gonna be somewhere in the room, and they're gonna track you. So if you,
Well,
stumble into a
that
physical
is
object, you don't
That is
fall.
actually, Stan, that's a little bit more in alignment with the HoloLens from Microsoft, which
Right.
incorporates, your external environment with the augment, virtual reality, basically for an augmented reality experience, which is quite honestly my preference. I'm not always a big
Sure.
fan of this of being completely immersed because I feel cut off, and you also obviously realize you can't move around because you're going to walk into stuff. But I have to say, Stan, did you get any sense or understanding of what this tremendous fascination with VR suddenly is? Like everybody's into it. Was it a buzzy topic out there? Were people talking about it? And did anybody come up with an epiphany about why we're suddenly in love with VR products?
At MWC, oh well, I didn't even notice that this year. I mean, the HTC sort of launched, but actually just announced for the very far future this thing. And for the rest, it was really, since Google Glass is kind of gone, there was a lot of companies which were like unsure what they're really doing with it. There were some like Google Glass-based apps, but I think a lot of it fell flat. So. I didn't feel the buzz about virtual reality this year.
All right. Well,
Interesting. It is happening. All right, so we're moving on to our next topic, which is BlackBerry. Okay, now we're moving on to our next topic, which is the Huawei watch. No, does anybody genuinely? Does anybody have?
No,
Does,
I think that's
so does
actually
anybody?
totally perfect.
Does anybody have anything to say about BlackBerry? They've got a new
They
low-end
will
enterprise phone.
try. They will try. Somebody said this, and it's true. I think it was Carissa Bell said, "This guy, they will try anything. They are not. Nothing is off the table now." I said, with the one exception of rehiring Alicia Keys. That will
Right,
not
right.
happen.
No, well, and she won't join them. You know, the whole reason she joined them was that they paid for her tour, which was the whole crux behind that. But anyway, yeah, so they announced like a bunch of new smartphones. Only one that's shipping now. It's a low-end phone. It's basically an S3 spec-wise, but they're
Yeah.
selling it for $275 unlocked for enterprise. No one cares about this thing.
Well,
They
also
have
overseas, right? I imagine they, developing
no,
countries, right?
no, they're selling it here. They're selling it here in the United States.
That's stupid.
Yeah, well, exactly, Lance. Exactly. They're also going to have a slider, but they didn't really release any details about it. It kind of looks interesting, but honestly, like I think the sliders days have passed. There's going to be a new Porsche design phone and another keyboard phone. Okay. Does anybody? I mean, I'm assuming we're all nay on BlackBerry. Does anybody have anything else before we move on to the topic we actually have opinions about? All right, no one.
Nope.
So now we're gonna go on to the Huawei watch. Stan, we're gonna start with you because this thing, when this video launched, I mean, okay, granted the video is kind of douchey, it's kind of whatever, but the watch looks hot. The watch looks amazing. It's a bummer it's from Huawei, so we'll probably never see it in the States. But Stan, tell us about this watch and tell us what you thought about it.
Well, I was not actually at the event, but they took a short glimpse at it. And I also saw the LG watch, which got a lot less buzz, although it's kind of similar.
The Urbane.
The Urbane, yeah.
Right.
There are actually two Urbanes, which are vastly different, as I wrote in the article.
Yeah, one's a WebOS, right? Did
Yeah,
you get
one-
to
Yeah.
check that one out?
Yeah, so one is Android Wear, and the other is like WebOS based, but they're called almost identical. So one is LG Watch Urbane, and the other is LG Watch Urbane LTE. So completely different. So I think that's what like kind of killed LG's buzz, because everybody was like, what the hell is happening here? And so Huawei took their buzz from them, and it's definitely a beautiful watch. And you could see that everybody who launched the smartwatch, which is basically just LG and Huawei, but still, they kind of tried to emulate the luxury aspect of the upcoming Apple Watch. And I think it makes sense. I think everybody that wore this thing and tried it on was like, oh, this looks nice. So that's one thing that they got right. As far as the other stuff goes, I mean, it's Android Wear. So if you like it, if you like where Android Wear is at now, well, you might love it. But other than that, I don't think it has anything that really new
Right.
compared to
But
the other.
it's pretty. Definitely,
pretty.
but it's attractive, and they managed to get the circle on the screen without having a little white bar underneath like Motorola did. So
Right.
that's good.
Yeah, and
What did you guys think?
Just to say, the LG Watch Urbane LTE is actually even nicer looking. It's for me, a little bit more like a masculine look, but I love the look of that thing. So yeah.
Yeah, great. So Stan's on the watches. Pete, what are you and your comrade there? What are your thoughts on the Huawei watch and on the Urbane and the Urbane LTE?
We think it's something beautiful.
But I'd like, obviously smartwatches are going in sort of a slightly different trajectory than they were last year. Last year they were kind of trying to show the viability of the concept. They were very gadgety. People are realizing the gadgety nature of it isn't really turning on that many people. I think everyone is sort of very much feeling that Apple is could be onto something here with its extremely strong push to get the fashion industry on board with the Apple Watch. And you're seeing it in little ways. I mean, with the Urbane and the Huawei watch, like very clearly, like, hey, this is going to be this hot gadget, this hot accessory first, and a sort of a gadget second. But then I remember, I think it was, I forget which one, there was some, I don't know if it was either one of those, but there was some smartwatch that was like announced, and then it was like, oh, and AT&T is going to be the first carrier to carry this thing. And it's just like this stupid mobile-first mentality that these guys just default to. I mean, sure you need partners, sure you need ways to get it into customers' hands, and that's what they've figured out. But I mean, surely Apple isn't the only one who can do something
Right.
in the marketing, distribution, retail side, because that's what you need to really sort of move the needle here.
Yeah, Pete, I can't say how you are so right on this, that the biggest failing for these smartwatches is where you buy them. I still remember walking into my local Verizon store, and along with all these phones and tablets and cases and stuff, there was the Samsung, the Gear. And, the bunch of gears, and it's like, oh, that's what they, in their heads, that's what it belongs with. And of course, that's not what people are shopping for watches for. And the whole point of this is you want these watches alongside other watches so that they're making a decision about the features and functionalities they want from their watch. That they want, okay, it's a timepiece. Well, what does my timepiece do for me? What level of intelligence do I want? And how does it fit with my fashion sensibility? As we prepare for Apple's big event on Monday, we know that that is a large part of it, that they are going to be talking a lot about the fashion side, the retail side. And when I looked at the Huawei and even the LG Urbane, I was pleased that they had a better, more watch-like look, more elegant, but still, you flip them to the side, they look kind of fat. They don't have a curve. If you're not going to curve, then get thin. They can't get thin. They haven't done anything about battery life. They're still running gear. So I wasn't like, oh, there's an initial reaction when I see the very pretty pictures they show, and then when you see it on someone's wrist in the real world, you start to go, not so much. But you know what? It's fine. You want to make a fat watch, that's okay too, because believe me, there are people buying fat watches.
Definitely. Casio has a whole market for it.
Right.
That's the G market. No, I think you're absolutely right, Lance. We're going to talk more about the Apple Watch as we get closer to the end of the show, but I want to get everybody's opinion now on Google's their wireless operating system, their MVNO. Yay or nay on this? I'm nay. I guess maybe it'll be better competition, but I personally am creeped out by the idea of Google being a wireless carrier. It was announced this week, or today actually, I think Forbes reported that it's actually going to be in small markets, only for Android and only on the Nexus 6. But it might be launching as soon as the end of March. So I'm going to start with you, Pete. What do you think of, because I think we have different opinions on this, what do you think about Google's MVNO? And would you have a Nexus 6, would you use it on Google's network?
Well, I've used a Nexus 6. Would I use it ever? Probably not. Would I use a phone on Google's network? Yes. Yay! I like the Google wireless service. And I'll tell you why. I really like these small-scale guys who are also virtual network operators like Freedom Pop and Republic Wireless, buying Spectrum wholesale and sort of addressing this issue that, you could be paying too much for wireless. You probably are. I mean, wireless carriers are kind of like the oil companies of the modern world. They're squeezing out as much profit as they can before their days are done. And it's like, I don't need unlimited calls and texts really anymore. Now that I've migrated more or less fully to communication in other ways and these messaging services. So all I want is data. And if you can figure out a way to price that better, I'm all for it. And that's, I'm not sure what Google plans to do there, but I mean, what else could they disrupt? Because in terms of technology, the networks are already going as fast as they can. So I don't know if the backing by Google Fiber is really going to do a hell of a lot, unless it's in very, very specific areas. But maybe that's all they want to do. But I'm really looking forward to the potential of maybe them providing LTE level connectivity for like half or even less than what other carriers do.
Lance, before I go to you, I want to go to Stan first, because you are in Europe where the situation is different and where you can have better connectivity for certain things. What do you think about Google's plans for an MVNO? And if you lived in the States, or even if they eventually had the option, in Croatia, would you consider using them as an MVNO?
Well, I'm going to just take a very general opinion. I have a feeling that Google does these things like Google Fiber and now this for some very different reason. I don't think they really want to compete with the others. I think they're just testing the waters for their like internal, they want to have like a finger in everything, So I have no idea if I'd use it. I mean, if the price was right, if the service was okay, I'd definitely use Google Fiber if someone offered it to me here because I have pretty crap internet.
But think about this, Dan. Google does things 10x. That's its mission. When whoever decided to do this, whether it's Sundar Pichai or somebody else, went to Larry Page and said, we should do this, and Larry Page asked them, how do we do that 10 times better than people are doing it now? And whatever that plan was, we don't know yet, must have been that. So I don't know if this is just like a little experimental thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you might be right there. But I think it's really too early to tell because there's not that much info about it.
So yeah, Google does things 10x, but at 10x slower pace than anyone else. Google Fiber has rolled out.
Are you nay, Lance? Are you nay?
I am nay because
Yes.
I feel like Google sometimes does things just because it can.
Yep.
The model, the Cricket model, what was the other Boost Mobile model?
Mobile.
Version
Mobile.
And and they tend to be they'll offer great deals, fewer services, less coverage because they have to lease the lines. They're not the sole proprietor, and they have less control. When they build their own technology, things get more interesting. But then you can see when you have to do something at an infrastructure level, like building out a fiber network, it's painfully slow. Hey, we just did another city. When Verizon rolled out Fios, it actually moved pretty rapidly. It slowed down, obviously, quite a bit, but initially it moved so fast. I remember how quickly it was going from place to place and was immediately seen as a viable option. I agree with Pete, though, that if they're going to do this, I really hope that they bring something more, because that could actually make things go faster. So here's a good way to think about this. A lot of us currently have LTE technology on our phones, and many times we will look at our phones and see 4 bars. But raise your hand if the 4 bars is a lie. There you go. Right, exactly. It's a lie because everybody's on these networks. The towers, there aren't enough towers, there aren't enough spots for the incredible number of people that have rushed onto these networks. Could Google introduce a smarter tower? A smarter cell tower that optimizes every single person's LTE experience? Then I am interested, then I would be a yay. But that's not what I heard. I just heard they're another player in the game for their own single phone. Why do I
that's
care?
a rumor now.
Rumor. Sorry, rumor.
Rumor, right. All right. So you know what? We don't really have time to kind of get into the Qualcomm Touch ID thing, although that is a cool story. But I want to go ahead and now. First, we had one audience question. It was, which phone would you rather get, the M9 or the S6? I think we're all in agreement the S6 is the more interesting phone. Yeah, the Edge, exactly.
Edge.
But
I like the Edge.
but I want to spend kind of the last 5 minutes of the show getting everybody's just kind of thoughts about the smartwatch efforts of all the other companies, especially as we prepare for the Apple Watch event. Lance, you and Pete and Stan touched on this earlier, but Stan, I want to kind of start with you because I know you're kind of a watch guy and you have an interesting perspective, having been at Mobile World Congress, having seen some of the trends that have happened with watches. What do you kind of think of the efforts from the other companies, especially at Mobile World Congress? Pebble was there. Obviously, they announced the Pebble Time seal. And there have been some other, Huawei and LG had their offerings there. Did you get the sense from companies that they're scared of Apple, or that they're altering their strategy other than maybe making things look a little bit better? I mean, what did you kind of get the sense from? I mean, Apple was kind of the elephant in the room. Pete wrote a great piece this week kind of talking about how they took the thunder out of everything and at Mobile World Congress. Was that clear to you on the show floor? Were people talking about the Apple Watch, or was that maybe just our perception being here back in America?
No, definitely there was the Apple. Maybe they were not scared, but they all went for luxury. So
Yeah.
obviously, they're scared of. They're thinking, okay, if Apple is putting a lot of effort into creating a luxury phone, then we got to do something along those lines. I think that out of those three, the major ones, Pebble is. I don't think Pebble is very scared because Pebble has
Right.
kind of a different thing going on, and I think that the great success of their Kickstarter shows that there's a lot of interest in that. As far as LG and Huawei go, I'm not sure. I think they're just trying to do something. I mean, you said that I'm big on watches. I'm actually not. I've never worn a watch. I'm looking at watches and I like.
Way to make me a liar, Stan. Way to make me a liar.
No, here's the thing. I've been following the scene for a long time, and definitely not big on smartwatches, and
Gotcha.
that's because a watch has to look nice all the time, and smartwatches, at least with these current batteries, you have to charge them every day, and they're dead most of the time. If you look at
Yes.
them, the screen is dim. It's the opposite of most people who buy luxury watches want them to be seen. They want it to look nice and a nicely crafted piece of technology on the wrists. And most of the smartwatches are kind of the opposite of that. So until somebody solves the battery problem, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm very, very interested in the Apple Watch launch because Apple is doing really a different thing with its UI design than Android Wear. I think it's going to be vastly different, but the verdict is still out in whether it's going to be any good.
Yeah, what do you think, Pete? Lance, we're going to end with you because I know you got tons of thoughts. But Pete, what do you think? You're wearing Android Wear every day, and you were really into the Sony smartwatch.
I'm not really that big on Android Wear. I don't like that I have to charge it every day. That's why I really
Right.
like what Pebble's doing. Honestly,
Yep.
I'm really excited to see the Pebble Steel and Pebble Time Steel up close. Um, sorry, the Pebble Time and the Pebble Time Steel. But it's really ingenious. I got to give Pebble a lot of credit for doing taking their approach with e-ink and sort of the manual controls and having those trade-offs for battery life, because it doesn't seem to compromise the experience much. You still get you get your notifications, you get the key things you want from a watch in a very nice design, but they don't have to worry too much about processors and touchscreen fluidity and that kind of stuff. So it was a very smart thing to do. Not that really Apple or any other company could get away with it. I mean, everyone's waiting for the Apple Watch. It's gonna land with a nuke and then completely get everyone to rethink their approach. I think we're going to see that sort of trend continue.
Yep.
Like I say, I like what's going on with smartwatches, but I mean, it's sort of like what Stan was getting at. Even with the Apple Watch, even with all this stuff, I don't think it's yet shown exactly what you want with it. What the killer app is. Notifications are nice, but they're not the killer app. And I think everyone's pretty much agreed. I think context is the killer app. Once it really facilitates more experiences, but there's so much more that kind of has to happen with both beacons and just machine learning and that kind of thing for that to really be effective. That we're still a ways away. So we'll see.
We'll see. All right, so Lance, I know that you are about to get on a plane to go to Cupertino and see this big thing, the Yerba Buena Center in San Francisco. Give us your thoughts on the Apple Watch and kind of how the market's been reacting to it and what we can kind of expect to see on Monday, because it's all going to be laid out there. I'm anticipating that they're going to have a really big retail push and going to be showing off the luxury experience as we've been talking about hardcore. Angela Ahrendts, who now runs their VP strategy, was famous at Burberry for A, turning the company around, and B, making their stores just an amazing experience. They were using RFID tags and NFC and all kinds of digital innovations in their stores way early and way beyond what any other retailer is still doing. And I think that she's going to be making this a really luxurious experience to buy the watch, and that it's really going to be going after people, as Stan was saying, who want this kind of piece of jewelry on their wrist. You are a watch guy, unlike Stan. You really are a watch guy. I know you wear a Pebble Steel on your wrist, but you're also a big watch fan. You're also an Apple guy. You're an everything guy. You are our gadget guru. So kind of give us your download and kind of talk a little bit. I know you mentioned stuff earlier, but I want to kind of hear your take.
Well, first of all, let me explain something to everybody here. The smartwatch already has a killer app. Do you know what it is? It's called
What's that?
What time is it? Watches already have a purpose. What we're doing here is we're augmenting that functionality with a whole bunch of other stuff. I primarily wear a watch because I need to know what time it is at a glance, and because I like the way they look. Obviously, I do like the way they look. Yes, I'm a Pebble Steel fan. Yes, I was thrilled about the updates that they have got now on board, the new products, the time. These are gorgeous looking, color.
Hmm.
They do so much, and they're still maintaining 10-day battery life. I mean, that could be incredible if it really works that way, when they finally all come out. I am a big fan of what they've done. I'm impressed because what Pebble has recognized from day one is that less is more.
Yep.
Now, I do love my notifications. I get, I was talking to, even to this day, I'll be out and people will remark on my watch, on the Pebble Steel, which I'm wearing right here. And I will get notifications throughout the day, whether I've got an app update, I've got an important text, my wife is calling, maybe I have my phone sitting someplace else and I don't feel it, but I got it on my wrist. Now, for what Apple is doing on Monday, we're finally going to get, I think, the deepest dive possible on Apple Watch. It's going to be very much the centerpiece of a new kind of product and a new way of retailing an Apple product, because that is key. This cannot be, Apple won't make the mistake that Samsung and others have made, and it won't put it in those stores where it doesn't belong. And, I think Aaron's will make certain that this feels like a piece of jewelry that you want to wear and own. And we will understand much more deeply all the apps. We know people are building apps. One thing that Apple is very, very good at is working with developers, getting them excited. Why? Because developers have learned they can make money with Apple. So if if they smell money, they're going to develop for it. And I think that they will work off the promise that Apple is providing, because Apple Watch is such an unproven product. But we're going to hear and see all the exciting things they can do. I could go on and on about Apple Watch. I want to kind of stop and say that for as excited as I am, and as interested as I am in watches, I still believe to this day that this is the biggest test for Apple in a decade. There is, I'm sorry, I'm going to say more than a decade. I'm going to say 15 years since before the iPod.
This is the iMac?
Well, I think, I kind of feel like iPod was a bigger test for them because it was a category they weren't in. And it was one that was failing terribly, the music players. And Apple basically said, this is the way to do it. This feels more like that. Everybody's trying with these smartwatches, but nobody's hitting it.
Right.
Apple is either going to have a huge success or one of its biggest failures on its hands. I'm convinced of that. I don't think there's a middle ground here. So Monday's going to set the tone for all of that. I also expect Monday that there may be some other stuff. One of the biggest probable best bets is the new MacBook Air, which is probably won't get the kind of visibility or prominence of everything else, but it's such an important product. I look around the offices at Mashable. I can't tell you how many people have MacBook Airs.
Everyone.
And they're gorgeous. But now they're going to undergo some sort of transformation that I think could mark sort of a turning point for Apple and laptops. So that's all I got to say.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to disagree with you on. I think that's it exactly. I think we're going to see an update on the MacBook Air. I don't think we're going to see the redesign until June, but we will agree to disagree on that one, Lance. Anyway, this has been a great hangout. We've talked a ton about what we've seen in the at Mobile World Congress, what we've liked, what we haven't liked. We're in favor of Samsung's new/old direction. We're confused by HTC. We think that some of the new smartwatches look really good, but maybe aren't going luxury enough. And Google, well, whatever. Google and B&O, Pete's all about saying he welcomes our new MVNO overlords. The rest of us are a little skeptical. Although Stan does say that he would take
There we
Google
go.
Fiber in a second.
Yeah,
There you go.
baby.
I love it. That's it. That's it. That's
Give me my
exactly it.
Google Wireless. I want my Google Wireless.
It's exactly it. Lance is like, no. And it is Take Your Action Figure to Work Day, hence all the action figures and all the hangouts. I want to thank Stan Schroeder for joining us from Croatia off of a very, very long trip. Thank you so much, Stan, our European editor. Thank you, Pete Patchell, our tech editor, for joining us and bringing along your friend. And as always, Lance Ulanoff, our chief correspondent. I'm Christina Warren. Join us next week for the next Mash Talk, where we will be talking all about the Apple Watch, answering all of your questions, at least as far as all the questions that we can answer, and talking about so much more. Be sure to tune in and let us know what you think of Mash Talks using the hashtag Mash Talk on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, YouTube, etc., etc. Thank you guys, and we will see
The
you
Apple
next
Watch
week.
for hope. I'll take that from them for